Thanks, Shubin. So I'll be covering the recent, well, I guess it's been announced a few months ago now, iOS 14 related updates from Apple and the impact that those have on our standards, especially, but in general, a little bit about the ad tech space as well. So the main things that when iOS 14 was announced, there were a number of privacy-related updates that they announced at that time. There were a number of smaller things like the different changes around the geolocation, a privacy report that talks about the details about tracking information for various apps. But the two key things I would say that are part of that part of that update were, number one, changes to how IDFA is supposed to work, the identifier for advertising, and the second thing is around how the app install attribution, basically how attribution would work, and specifically for app installs. So in terms of the IDFA, the big change there is that there is a lot more detail now, and there's going to be that screen that you can see the screenshot of over there, which should be popped up to the user in order to accept that they can be tracked or not. So that definitely is a big change over there. And the second piece is as far as the attribution goes, they defined a whole new mechanism for doing attribution, basically. And they started off with focusing on app install attributions, but now they are also looking at view attribution as well. So we'll get to that in a second. But basically, the big change is that they have limited because they've limited the amount of tracking that you can do. The big change is also that they want to reduce the real time. They want to use their mechanism, which is called SKAdNetworks, to do your attribution. So when you have an app that you show an app install kind of an ad, and then you go install the app, you have to follow their mechanism of SKAdNetworks to get the attribution around that app install. And the key change, actually one of the big changes there, I would say, is that you can no longer do a real time. You don't no longer get real time signals around that. It's an aggregated and delayed information. So basically the goal really being they want to keep again the focus on privacy, right? So they want to basically reduce the opportunity for people to figure out who it is and so on. So those are the main changes that they announced with iOS 14. And Shubin, can you go to the next slide? And there's been a whole bunch of discussion on this topic. I'm sure that all of you have seen that as well, but I thought I'll highlight a couple of things. So one is there is a whole bunch of discussion about, so maybe if the IDFA is with the change to the IDFA, one of the big expected results of that is that it'll probably mean that this is kind of the end of the IDFA in many ways as we know it, right? Basically, the chances of that with that scary looking prompt, the chance of users agreeing to that people feel are low. Now we don't know that for sure, but that's basically the opinion in general. And of course, attribution is also completely changing. So, but yeah, as far as the IDFA goes, people thought, oh, maybe they can just use their own identifiers without using the IDFA. But that's something that Apple quickly came back to clarify that, okay, if you're not allowed to use any other identifiers, you cannot use for doing cross app user tracking, basically. So there was a whole thread with Facebook, for example, where Facebook initially thought that they would be able to use Facebook logged in users, and then they clarified that that is not going to be the case. So the bottom line over there with IDFA is that you're not allowed, if the user does not give you explicit permission to track them, you're not allowed to use either the IDFA or your own login as well. And the last part to that is that there is something called an IDFA identifier for is a vendor-based identifier. So basically, something that works across all the apps for a given publisher. So you are allowed to use that across your own apps for things like frequency capping and so on. But that's again very limited in scope, only for all the apps from a given publisher. Other than that, there's there's a lot of concern around consent fatigue, right? So there are so many different discussions like GDPR in Europe, TCF, and so on, which are again prompts for getting user permission. And it is unfortunate that Apple chose to have their own proprietary thing for iOS, but that's something that we are now going to have to deal with at this point. So that's the take across the industry. Can you go to the next slide, Shivan? As far as the TechLab's efforts go, from a broader perspective, we are having conversations in the context of Project Rearc around identity and privacy and so on. And part of that is, I think, going to be a lot more emphasis on things like the content taxonomy to do contextual targeting, audience taxonomy to be able to do a cohort-based audience targeting, and so on. But the direct set of work that we have been doing has been in the OpenRTB subgroup focused on SKAD networks, and that's what I'll focus on in the next few slides. Can you go to the next slide? Great. So this slide kind of covers at a high level all the changes that that we have been working on. The first one is a very simple, and this again is not. It is to support what the mechanism in which the mechanism that Apple has presented, right? So what are the changes in OpenRTB that are needed, and other places that are needed to support that mechanism. So we made a change to the bid request device object. We have an extension around that where we provide support for the IDFA as well as the more granular information around authorization status for the IDFA. So that's one update. The second update is around the SKAdNetworks, the SKAdNetworks related work. And we have made changes to basically an extension for the bid request and the response, basically to enable DSPs, SSPs, and everyone to be able to pass that information back and forth. And what I mean by that is that in order for this whole thing to work, the app has to in the app in the app there'll be a list of SKAN network IDs that the app developer has decided to support, and then while making a bid request, they'll have to pass in that list of IDs that they support that in other words, that can be used for attribution. And then the DSP on the buy side, you can now look at that list of IDs and decide whether that for that particular impression, can I get attribution or not? And then based on that, the DSPs can respond. So that's the basic idea. And in order to support that, we have made some updates to send the list of IDs back and forth, if you will. So that's the basic set of changes over there. But then we quickly realized that, okay, sending a whole bunch of SKAN network IDs back and forth is probably not the best use of the bandwidth, and it's going to increase costs significantly. And that's the reason why we decided that we have to do a better job of managing that IDs, right? So basically, initially we had two proposals where we talked about individual SSPs maintaining their list of supported SKAN network IDs. But then we decided that the better path might be for having a centralized shared list managed by the TechLab of the IDs. And that's a tool that we have released, and I'll talk to that in a second.
1 minute, Amit. I was just one request, Shiven.
Yeah.
If you can expand this slide to more than 100%, that diagram is not clear. I think it'll be good for people to just take a look at a clearer diagram version. Maybe a little more.
Yep.
Or if you can go to slideshow.
Yeah, I will go to the slideshow. Yep, you will have to just take care of the management other stuff because it hides all my other options. Yep, okay.
Can you go back one slide, Shwin?
Yes.
Yeah. So the last part that I did want to close on is that is a thing that says number 3 there. That's the piece where there is work that app developers have to do to download the list of IDs that they want to support and then create a plist out of that. And that's something that we are working on right now to kind of figure out how we would basically see if there is a tool that we can provide to help improve that that implementation, but we'll get to that in a second. The picture over there that you can see is probably a little too small still, but basically shows the flow of information across the system, right? So from the app to the SSP, passing the information about the when they're trying to make a bid request, and then the SSP when they send the request across. That's when they pass the SKAdNetwork IDs or the use the list to understand what range within the list is supported and so on. And then when you come back, if the bid response includes a supported SKAdNetwork ID, then the app is now able to, now the app knows that it can do attribution with that particular SKAdNetwork ID. And so when it does the app install, it'll pass that information along into the Apple APIs with that particular ID. So that's the way that the flow works. And yeah, actually, I should say that blog post that we have linked over there, and that URL for the GitHub extension has a lot more detail and provides a lot more provides a pretty detailed description of how to implement it and how to use all of these things. So please do take a look at that and reach out to us if you have any questions on any of that. Can you go to the next slide, Shwin? So basically, as far as what can you do right now, right? So one is, of course, if you are someone who is interested in getting attribution and you need a SKAdNetwork ID, you should reach out to Apple immediately and get an ID from them. Next, actually, this may be a little older slide that I had, but basically, you should go to the TechLab portal and register that SKAdNetwork ID with that with our tool, so that it's now a part. It becomes a part of that that list. And then, of course, join the programmatic working group to work on us on the SKAdNetwork extension and also the project rearc. On the next couple of slides, I'll show the tools, the tool itself. So if you go to the TechLab tools portal, the tools.iabtechlab.com, you can, if you're not registered before, you can register with the login and so on, and then pick the SKAdNetwork ID list. Can you go to the next slide? And then if you are if you want to register your SKAdNetwork ID, you would click on the register SKAdNetwork ID link. And then you would basically enter your information over there. Now there is a charge for for registering your SKAdNetwork ID. Sherry, what's the charge? Do you recall?
Pardon? Yeah, so it's there's
the annual fee.
There is a small fees for us to be able to maintain this infrastructure. It's $150 if you're a member of IAB Tech Lab, and it's $200 if you're not a member of IAB Tech Lab.
Right. Yeah, and
you can pay by credit card. So.
Right, exactly. So we figured that we hope that this is a list that will have a significant adoption, and so that's the reason why we figured a small fee is going to be sufficient to get things going and support our the development costs at the same time. And I should also say the list itself is free to access for the publishers, so there's no charge on that front to download the list. Can you go to the next slide, Shwin? And that's the link to access the list. So you can either click on that link, and if you go to the next slide, you can either download the JSON file, the list as a JSON file, or you can or you can also we also provide an API endpoint to be able to use that in a automation if you want to use it in for automation. So we provide that as well. Can you go to the next slide? Oh yeah, so that's basically the last set that I have. Do we want to do questions now, Shivan, or?
Yes, 2, 3 just things. We will be sharing this entire deck and the recording to all the people who have joined this stuff. So do not worry if you have not noted down these things. And next couple of days, we will make this deck and recording available to everyone. And so no worries on that. I would open the floor for questions. I think request if you can type in your questions onto the chat box, and I can call out the name if there is additional clarification needed to expand the question. So if you can at least type few of your questions there, and then we can I can call out people to unmute whose question is being taken up.
And I mean, feel free to speak up too, like unmute yourself and go ahead and speak if you have any questions.
Yeah, if it's easier to just ask.
Yeah, you can. If you can, it's easier, please feel free to unmute and ask the question. So the questions can be anything about TechLab, anything questions on SKAdNetworks, on registering for the SKAdNetworks. If you are a mobile Apple app developer, you would need those lists to declare your friendly networks through which you would be sharing your data. So please feel free to ask any questions that you have around this. So no worries, that's okay. Shelly, is there anything that you have to say? Amit, you can add, and then otherwise we will end the meeting. It's possibly lunchtime in Malaysia and Indonesia, and people are hungry while you all have to get to sleep.
Yeah. So just wanted to add, like we quickly organized this session mainly to focus on SKAdNetworks because although Apple has not, as usual, given us an exact date, they are pretty secretive about when and what they launch, but they have indicated early spring, which means early spring in US means mid to late March. So there's not too much time when this thing will start rolling out. And for app publishers to get the right attribution from their demand partners, and for the agencies and advertisers to understand from which media they're getting the attribution for app installs and other actions. And this is pretty urgent that in the next 1 to 2 weeks that you make sure that all your partners are registered and you're able to get that list and be able to add them to your P list in your apps.
Yes, Amit, you were saying something.
I was actually going to say something similar, that there is a real urgency to the whole SKAdNetworks and IDFA story. So Shelly basically said what I had to say.
Yeah, so I have just typed out the URL for our website. There is a lot of information. So a lot of the slides that we have shared today, especially the 4 pillars, the entire thing you want to know about privacy, brand identity, measurement, and OpenRTB. There are links for all of you to go. Please, if you are in digital advertising industry, I believe these are must-have. A lot of resources that you can access and understand. Going further, just wanted to make a point. Then on 18th of March, we will have another session on distributed ledger technology. This is how the distributed ledger technology is one of the proposals in the project REARC as to how one can manage identities. Further to that, we were doing another session on the 1st of April. Both of them are Thursdays, usually the same time, 10 o'clock India, 11:30 Indonesia, 12:30 Malaysia. Same time, we will be doing these 2 sessions, and we will keep you informed of 2 further sessions we are planning in April, which would be possibly around the Universal ID framework, which is another proposal of how to manage identities after the deprecation of third-party cookies. So please stay informed. We will be again sharing this deck and the recording with you. Please feel free to pass it on to further to your colleagues. With that, I'm signing off. Thanks, Shelly. Thanks, Amit, for joining.
One more thing,
Yes.
I just wanted to add, like this should not be considered like a one-way communication that me, Amit, and Shiven are working on something and lecturing you on that. We want this to be like a two-way communication. I'm pretty sure that within your teams and your companies, you are also thinking about all of these things. So we do welcome like suggestions and solutions that you have thought about, and we'd be happy to organize another session to showcase that to the local community there, and also learn from what you are doing and take it back to the rest of the Tech Lab membership.
So I've just shared my email access to box to which all of us have access, and if possible, we would communicate back and try to clarify anything that you have. So thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon, and good night to Shelly and Amit for joining this. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.